The mortality of moral injury. Moral injury is not merely pain. It is not the same thing as fear, grief, shame, or trauma, though it may contain all of them. It is a wound that forms when something in a person is forced into collision with what they know or once knew to be true, right, sacred, necessary, or human. It occurs when the soul is made to participate in its own violation, whether by action, inaction, coercion, betrayal, survival, obedience, helplessness, or some unbearable combination of them all. A person may suffer terribly and yet not be morally injured. Pain alone does not create it. Loss alone does not create it. Even violence alone does not always create it. Moral injury begins where suffering passes through meaning. It is born at the point where the inner architecture of righteousness is breached, where the world no longer appears merely dangerous, but wrong in a way that cannot be easily repaired. Something has happened that should not have happened, or something that should have been done was not done, and the one who remains must go on living in the aftermath of that fracture. This is why moral injury is so difficult to describe. It often does not feel like an ordinary wound. Ordinary wounds may ache, but they still allow the world to remain intelligible. Moral injury does something deeper. It does not merely hurt within the world, it destabilizes the world itself. It alters the terms by which reality is interpreted. The injured person is not simply carrying pain. He is carrying contradiction. He has seen, done, permitted, survived, or been subjected to something that makes previous meanings feel false, childish, inaccessible, or obscene. He may no longer trust goodness, innocence, duty, love, authority, God, other people, or even his own former self. He may feel that something foundational has been taken from him, not just emotionally, but ontologically. Sometimes moral injury comes from what one has done. Sometimes it comes from what one has failed to do. Sometimes it comes from what was done by others while one stood too near, too powerless, too obedient, too confused, or too dependent to stop it. Sometimes it comes from being betrayed by those who were supposed to protect, guide, love, or tell the truth. Sometimes it comes from discovering that the system one served was never what it claimed to be. Sometimes it comes from being made to act against conscience in order to survive, and then being told afterward to live as though survival itself were innocence. The injury deepens because moral life is never merely abstract. Human beings do not inhabit ideas alone. They inhabit bonds, loyalties, trusts, promises, roles, names, and loves. Moral injury tears through these living threads. It is not only the breaking of a rule, it is the breaking of a world. And once that world has broken, the person may find that nothing fits back where it once belonged. Words such as honor, justice, family, brotherhood, service, faith, mercy, and home may still be spoken aloud, but they no longer sound the same. They may sound hollow. They may sound accusatory. They may sound like relics from a civilization that collapsed while everyone kept pretending it still stood. For this reason, moral injury often hides inside appearances that others misunderstand. It may look like anger, numbness, cynicism, disgust, isolation, hardness, compulsive control, reckless behavior, spiritual estrangement, or relentless self-accusation. It may appear as contempt for weakness or contempt for false strength. It may appear as the inability to pray, the inability to trust praise, the inability to receive love, the inability to forgive, or the inability to believe that forgiveness could possibly apply to oneself. It may also appear as overfunctioning, perfectionism, hypervigilance, and impossible standards. Sometimes the morally injured person does not collapse. Sometimes he becomes more effective, more disciplined, more dangerous, more useful, and more deadened all at once. This is part of what makes moral injury so devastating. It can preserve function while corrupting meaning. A person may continue to work, perform, provide, lead, speak, obey, produce, and endure, while inwardly becoming estranged from the very ground of his own humanity. Others may praise his strength without recognizing that the strength they admire is partly a scar. They may call him resilient, when in truth he has simply learned how to continue without access to his former innocence. They may think he has healed because he no longer speaks of the wound, when in reality he has merely learned that language fails in the place where the wound resides. And yet, moral injury is not reducible to guilt, even though guilt may live within it. Nor is it reducible to shame, though shame may spread through it like smoke. Moral injury is larger because it concerns the felt collapse, corruption, inversion, or betrayal of moral reality itself. The person does not merely think, "I did wrong," or "something bad happened to me." He may instead live inside thoughts such as, "What was good did not protect. What was sacred was not sacred. What I trusted was a lie. What I became should never have existed. What I saw cannot be reconciled. What happened cannot be made to fit within any world that deserves to be called just." This is why explanation alone rarely heals it. Information cannot simply stitch the breach. Reassurance cannot command the soul to trust what it now experiences as compromised. Even confession, apology, or pardon, though sometimes necessary, may not reach the full depth of the wound. Because moral injury is not only about a bad event. It is about the destruction, distortion, or desecration of moral coherence. It is the agony of living after a revelation one did not ask for and cannot undo. To suffer moral injury is to discover that survival and reconciliation are not the same thing. One may survive the event and yet remain unable to re-enter the world as it once appeared. One may keep breathing while feeling exiled from meaning. One may continue among the living while inwardly standing at the site of a collapse that others neither see nor understand. The morally injured often speak, if they speak at all, from that borderland, between guilt and innocence, between victimhood and participation, between judgment and grief, between memory and identity, between the person they were and the one who returned. And yet the injury, however deep, is not proof that conscience is dead. In many cases, it is the opposite. Moral injury may hurt so profoundly precisely because something in the person still knows the difference between desecration and holiness, betrayal and faithfulness, cruelty and love, falsehood and truth. The wound is not evidence of moral emptiness. It is evidence that the soul has not made peace with the violation. Something within still protests. Something still refuses to call darkness light. Something still remembers, however faintly, that there was once a better order than this. That protest can feel like torment, but it is also a sign. The pain of moral injury is terrible, yet hidden within it is a testimony that the human being is not made to endure contradiction without consequence, that the soul does not consent cheaply to desecration, that what is deepest in us does not remain untouched when truth is betrayed. Moral injury is therefore not only a wound of memory, it is a wound of meaning, relation, and being. It marks the place where a person has been forced into intolerable nearness with the violation of what should have been inviolable. Not everyone will picture the same scene when they hear these words. Some will see war, some will see childhood. Some will see marriage. Some will see a church, courtroom, a hospital room, a command structure, a private compromise, a public lie, a father, a mother, a friend, a betrayal, a silence, an order, a death, a hand not extended, a truth not spoken, a self they can no longer bear to name. Moral injury does not require one image because its essence is not found in the outer form alone. Its essence lies in the inward reach through which a person comes to experience reality itself as morally ruptured. And perhaps that is the clearest way to say it. Moral injury is what happens when the soul survives something that the conscience cannot successfully call acceptable.